Нормально? Нормально. Ну, по-перше, я всіх...
First, I would like to congratulate all of us with the visa-free regime of Ukraine to entry European countries. This is our joint victory, and I would like to congratulate my colleagues Lena Sushko and Aliona Hetmanchuk with the award. And now we have gathered here to think over what to do next. So our event is titled "We have visa-free regime. What is next?" The visa-free regime should be not only the visiting of foreign countries without visa. It was an impetus to reforms which Ukraine needs, which were made preconditions by European countries for providing Ukraine to the visa-free regime. There were many adventures on the way to implement these conditions. So there was a threat that this visa-free regime would be granted to Ukraine. So there is no positive and there is no negative impetus for Ukraine to drive reforms. First, I would like to tell you about the outcomes of public survey which we have conducted recently. This survey was conducted by Kucheriv and Sydorenko from 9 to 13th of June 2017. It was important to find out how the society perceived the visa-free regime. The significant portion of our population thinks that the visa-free regime is important for them. This is a large percentage, 1/3 of population. Talking about the differences, the more western regions, the more significance of the visa-free regime for the citizens, because of course if people live closer to the border they want to pass this border more often. So how many people have received the biometric passports? The agitage, it was present, and 9% responded that they already have biometric passports, and the same results. We can say that in the western region there are more biometric passports among population, and the younger the person, then the frequency of having been issued biometric passport is higher. So more people, 11% have more biometric passports issued, 11%, and in the eastern regions only 2.5% of citizens have biometric passports issued. So in western regions, 10% more wants to have biometric passports issued, and 7% in the eastern region. So the agitage will stop soon. Very many people will do this, not this year, but next year. So 26% in eastern regions and 34% in western regions want to do so next year. So no international passports have 66% of population. This is much compared to 2013 when nobody was talking about visa-free regimes. 70% had no foreign passports, so those persons, only 5% increment in this indicator we have so far. So those people who have their passports issued, they are those persons who had already foreign passports. And even we can say that the persons with the Schengen visas, active Schengen visas, they went to get issued biometric passports, and those persons who had no foreign passport, they still remain having no any foreign passport. For me, this is an indicator that Ukraine is still far from becoming a European country. This is an indicator for me which demonstrates whether we go towards the European Union. 84% of people over 60 have no foreign passports for traveling abroad, and 78% out of them are not going to have such passports. And in other countries, people of elderly age, they have the opportunity and willingness to travel to foreign countries. So a total of 15% of you elderly persons want to visit some Schengen country. So we can say that new opportunities are perceived differently by different categories of population. For southern and the eastern region, this is not important, and it is more important for western region. Then interesting question whether people feel themselves Europeans after the recent events, after the eastern vector fall. So what integration direction should Ukraine move forward? We compared May 2013, May 2015 in accession to the European Union. Yes, the answer which demonstrate increment by 30%, and now the eastern vector is supported by less than 8% of Ukrainian population, but not everyone who is who now do not believe in the eastern vector, they still have not now do not support the western vector as well. They think, well, let's stay independent but not go to Europe. They think we do not need Europe or something like that. Whether people feel themselves Europeans, this question was asked several times, and this compared to 2013, the feeling of Europeans have not grown. It was 35% in May 2013. Now 38%, so the increment is very low, almost the same percentage. We are stably asking what people need to feel themselves Europeans. The differences between Western and Eastern regions are not observed in answer to this question. To feel Europeans, we need life standards, financial life standards. There is some differences, but everything, the opinions of different categories of population and different regions of geographic regions of Ukraine, they coincide. In this feeling of Europeans, the financial status means most. Big room is to work for the journalists, where the people knows good the rules of visa-free regime. Only 14% of Europeans believe that they know well the rules of visa-free regime with the EU countries. 50% said that they know something. This means that they do not know something as well. And out of those who have biometric passports, there are more people knows out of them, but not 100%, about 2/4. We have not tested people, but some people know something, or some people do not know the rules. The control question, the check question was whether the visa-free regime, whether it gives people the right to labor in European countries. Only 15% answered in affirmative, but 22.5% said that it is hard to say whether they now have the right to work in a European country. There was also another question. Those who are willing to go to a Schengen country, what would be the purpose of the visit? Tourism is the overwhelming purpose of visits. 2/3 of potential visitors will go for tourism, and 21.8% of citizens will go to visit relatives and friends, and also 22% of our citizens want to be employed in European countries. This is the potential purpose of visit to a European country. Our respondents were journalists, experts, and writers. We asked them what efforts were the most efficient in visa-free regime, in getting visa-free regime by Ukraine. They said that NGOs put the most efforts into this. On the second place is the president of Ukraine, and some countries, then go some countries of the EU, Lithuania, Sweden, Poland, Germany, some countries of Europe were named by our respondent experts. I was surprised, although I'm not competent in this. Businessmen, out of 80 experts, they mentioned that there were some efforts put by businesses. We have a representative here. We will ask him what are the main advantages of the visa-free regime, the main where the opinions coincide, what that the feeling of being a European country. Maybe this feeling would grow. Now it is 1/4 of Ukrainians, one third of Ukrainians think so. As concerns sympathies growing to the EU and more support to the accession of the European Union and growing economic mobility of Ukrainian citizens, 34 experts checked as a plus, as an advantage. What risks could be mentioned? This mobility. 40 experts think this could be a risk of illegal labor migration to EU countries on the part of Ukrainian citizens and decrease in motivation of Ukrainian authorities, Ukrainian government to proceed with reforms and maybe suspension of visa-free regime in the case of backpedaling of reforms. So outflow of highly qualified personnel was mentioned also as a risk by the experts. What steps should be made about the European integration of Ukraine? There are no surprises in answers to this question. Whatever we asked, the first place was anti-corruption activities. Whatever we asked, everything focused on combating corruption, full implementation of the EU-Ukraine accession agreement, association agreement, and getting ready to the membership of the EU. So preparatory activities, steps to European integration of Ukraine, which directly concern international activities of Ukraine, implementation of EU-Ukraine open air agreement and FTA, free trade agreement, and approximation of our legislations and also foreign policy activities, and European integration also concerns implementation of domestic reforms inside of Ukraine, which will transform Ukraine into European country. Then Ukrainians will feel themselves Europeans. So we are here to talk about the next steps. I would like to give the floor to Iryna Sushko. Her NGO is named Europe Without Barriers. What should be the next steps after the festivities?
Thank you. So I thought we are going to speak about economy. I would like to start with what I have been recently asked. they said, ironically, yes, you fought for this visa-free regime that will be used by 16 or 20% of population of Ukraine. Did it worth it? I believe that it's worth it, and these numbers will increase. It will depend on test period of visa-free regime for 2 or 3 months. This will depend on information campaign that will continue for at least 1 year in order to explain to citizens how to use this visa-free regime correctly, not to get in some trouble, not to get into traps set by people's traffickers. And all citizens of Ukraine, without exception, got the start of reform that was started in the framework of visa liberalization. And this is not only a counteraction of corruption, but this is the powerful change that happened in the area of security of documents, protection of personal data, migration management, border control, fighting organized crime, reinforcement of cooperation between law enforcement bodies of Ukraine and the EU, and to counteract discrimination. I clearly see these areas of visa-free regime that are of the same value. From one side, this is mobility, and that we aspire to. And another area is the scope of changes and start of modernization of state policy, including security and fighting corruption. And about the question of Iryna, what should we do next? I believe that the answer is evident. From one side, I may say about public sector, we should focus our efforts we should deliver information campaign how to use this visa-free regime, but not only that. But we should be close with those people who will need help, legal help, because we believe that at the border or in the territory of EU, there can be different situations when people need consultation, legal consultations, and we should adequately provide it free of charge. It is also important to quickly respond on increasing number of different fakes, different distortions and myths that our eastern neighbor likes to disseminate. And recently, the representatives of mass media addressed us to dismantle some myths. Tell us, please, if our citizens will go to Europe, whether they will be able to get subsidies. So there are such distortions, and we should respond to this. From the other side, the task is we should not postpone reforms. We should carry out monitoring at the same pace as before visa-free regime, in order that reforms progress concerning fighting corruption and even to complete some reforms, for example, new ID documents. So we should create motivation in order that the government continued its active work, and we share the concerns on this. And the third task, I believe, is that we should be ready to quickly respond to possible risks concerning separate EU member states, about the red light of suspension mechanism if in several months there will be a big increase in the number of illegal migrants in the EU or rejections at the border. The matter is, in my opinion, these criteria may contain an element of manipulation. In my opinion, they are not so clear. They can provoke questions. If the EU will provide some massive of data, we should be ready to verify the data, because there can be some drawbacks and we should be ready to quickly respond. And one more important thing, visa-free regime has many accompanying tasks. So the organization I represent, Europe Without Barriers, we work in the area of expert support concerning signing of Open Sky Agreement, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. So this issue is still unresolved, but Ukrainian side can implement a number of tasks concerning implementation of directives that are part of association agreement. So we have a lot of work concerning mobile communication, transport conditions. So we have a lot of tasks ahead of us. Thank you. And the next speaker, I would like to add, I was in Kramatorsk yesterday. I was surprised that they had queues for biometric passports. I didn't check it, but I believe that there is big demand. And at frontline areas, there are many people who come from occupied territories and want to get a passport. To some extent, this is a visual confirmation that the Ukrainian passport became more valuable for our citizens who live in the occupied territories. So this is a big achievement. But we didn't ask people. They were not surveyed. And also, for me, it was also important to evaluate the data from the survey and to compare it. And what I saw is confirmed. So we can say about the number of people, about 3.5 million of people who got these passports. And if we are speaking about 9% that are older than 16 years. So this correlates, coincides. So I have all the grounds to believe that in other issues, people also responded fairly. About suspension mechanism, I believe we should be optimistic. I do not expect that Ukraine will face real threat that this visa-free regime be suspended. I have positive view on the matter. Iryna can confirm that before visa-free regime, we had consultations among experts who deal with this issue, and they expressed concerns that in first week of visa-free regime, the number of people who will be rejected at the border will be big. We were afraid of this because in Ukraine there is a big group of people who cannot travel to the EU because they were deported from Poland, Germany, and other countries. They got visas based on fake documents, and there are many people like this. It's difficult to assess their number, but these are tens of thousands of people. And people didn't understand the mechanisms and the procedures at the border, and maybe they think that biometric passports will allow them to go there, despite their past. We see that there are such cases, but they are rare. About 20 cases in 10 days, so this is really low. So we do not have grounds to believe that there will be a flow of people who do not have the right for visa-free regime, but will try to use it. Concerning the increase, this is one of the important indicators based on which they can re-establish visa regime. And this was the most important indicator. Next, the number of people who will be caught. I don't think this number will increase. There is no additional flow of illegal migrants. Many who wanted to go, they went before. So there won't be increase of 50% in order to activate this mechanism. And third, migration indicator. So if these people are caught and brought and sent back. But Ukraine is one of the leaders in implementation of the these procedures, and we adhere to the rules. So about immigration indicators, I have good expectations. We shouldn't forget that suspension allows to suspend visa-free regime for any country if the state will delay or stop reforms in the country. This indicator was introduced in the EU legislation. And from one side, this is concern, but for us as representatives of civil society, we believe that this is a positive sign. I cannot imagine, even theoretically, that Poroshenko or other leaders of the state would do something that visa-free regime would be suspended. That will be political suicide for them. So there would be protests even of those people who do not use this regime, and there will be a political death in elections. That's why I believe that our government won't delay reforms. And maybe the pace of reform won't be so high, but there will be a minimum pace of reform. We guaranteed it due to this suspension mechanism. So this is my opinion on the matter. Thank you. So a lot of issues have been raised. So First, I would like to thank Iryna for this wonderful survey. It was interesting to read it. And it's not 100% optimistic, but still, the issue that we are concerned is that number of Ukrainians who feel themselves Europeans is the same as it was in 2013, despite all events, despite those achievements. Maybe not so big, but still we are on the European way. But we should not dramatize the situation. I think that Ukrainians should feel Ukrainians, first of all, and then they will understand that European process is in the interest of Ukraine, whether it is membership in the EU or political and economic integration without being a member. And also I studied surveys from the EU state, and I was surprised that many people in the EU countries, they do not feel themselves Europeans. There is high percentage, they feel themselves Polish, or Czechs, or British. They do not feel Europeans, and this is an issue for discussion. But maybe we should not dramatize this. What is of interest is that the biggest indicator of being European is material factor, economic factor. And after economic factor, 36% of Ukrainians will feel themselves Europeans if they are protected by law. And this is also an important indicator, because supremacy of law, in my opinion, is even higher priority than fighting corruption, because fighting corruption is also face the problems in judiciary, so people are not protected by law, people do not feel themselves protected, they do not feel themselves Europeans because we do not have supremacy of law, and this is an indicator to pay attention to. All of us should pay attention to it, civil society, government, and today's discussion is really important. And I believe that this is only a start of discussion, and we should think how to be more active and how to deal with it properly. And Ukraine shouldn't follow the example of Moldova, because of corrupt government, European integration started to be associated by people with corruption. And after this emotional rise, we do not want that European integration be discredited because of some lack of reforms. People should see reforms, they should be visible. When we speak about fighting corruption and about corruption index, first of all, we should understand it as how people see this. And today there are many discussions of what should be done next, what are new elements, what are the carrots from the European Union in order to inspire our government to carry out reform and support of reforms by population, but we shouldn't invent a bike. There are clear instruments. There is the association agreement, and what is important today is to change communication strategy concerning association agreement. Your survey shows that some experts and other people believe that this agreement is one thing and reforms are something else. And when this agreement is communicated, I believe the majority of people do not see how it contribute to their family. What reforms are required by the European Union? What should be done? What reforms should be implemented in order not to disturb our relationship with the European Union? And many reforms, they are needed by Ukrainians. So we should shift focus. We should think more about people, citizens, and to provide them with information what this agreement provides to them. So I am a proponent of one old-fashioned opinion and concerning the prospect of membership in the EU. I agree that we shouldn't focus attention on this constantly and to use it in some populist goals, but we should understand that we should have a big dream concerning the EU. So we should become some prospect members, or we should invent something else. But there are no such plans to establish something else. So we should understand at our level, we should start non-toxic discussions that do not provoke excessive emotions in our European partners. So this dialogue with the European partners should be non-toxic. And as I'm here as the representative of the Institute of the World Policy, and we should carry out the survey on the issue of readiness of people to become that Ukraine be the candidate, and to also create a questionnaire for prospective candidates to EU. And we have such a questionnaire, 2,500 questions. And our colleagues from Eastern and West and Central Europe shared their questionnaires with us. And if we work on this and look at different sectors where Ukraine is ready and to what extent it is ready, and what are our strengths and weaknesses, and we will be able for constructive dialogue with the European Union, and at the same time to discuss these issues inside Ukraine and have a responsible attitude towards it. So I would like to stop here, and maybe economy is alpha and omega. So this is the conclusion, maybe.
Thank you. I have thought what the influence of visa-free regime could be on the economic situation of the country, what could be the benefits and the threats. The first benefit would be general growth of optimism and belief in the future of the country. We will see soon, according to the surveys, after everyone has believed that the visa-free regime is really working, then the confidence in our government has grown, and in general we can look on the indicators which hampers investments growing and development of economy. It is disbelief, it is no confidence in political elite and resulting in no confidence in economic growth of Ukraine. That is why we have outflow of staff and investments into other countries. This means outflow of capital. Monetary capital. The second positive impact as economic dimension that visa-free regimes open the window, psychological window to the West for economic development. It is also important because this make it easier to go to the conference, to an exhibition in some sector, to have a meeting for businesses, for smaller businesses. This would help them to reorient their flows and develop exports to European countries which have opened visa-free regime for Ukraine. This would help with attracting investments, with raising funds into Ukraine, and we can expect more investments and better business partnerships with European partners. Among the specific things we can expect benefits and positive impact on the transport sector, because the growth of the number of travelers to European countries would grow. This would help to bus companies, aircraft companies, to airlines to grow their outputs, to increase their outputs, and also to the traveling industry. Their outputs will grow as well. And also for Ukrainian domestic tourism, there will be more opportunities. On the one hand, we have got, after the devaluation in 2014-2015, a big barrier to foreign tourism and even non-competitive by price to quality ratio Ukrainian offers on the traveling market, so-called summer and winter tourism offers for travelers. So for people who were prevented by visa regime to have their recreation time abroad, to spend their time their vacations abroad, they will try now to go to European countries, and they will see better offers than Ukrainian companies, traveling agencies offer. These threats or negative impacts include the experts were asked about the risks of illegal work migration. Illegal employment is limited by risk of deportation. And I can also say that we see the change of policies in the countries on engagement of Ukrainians to official jobs in some countries of Europe. For example, in Poland, Ukrainians were issued 1,300,000 permits for permanent or temporary jobs, and this was in the time of war. So Polish people, they have already positive experience of cooperating with Ukrainians. They need to close their gaps because many Polish people have already migrated to work in European countries. That is why they should close the gaps, and they use Ukrainian labor. And also at the metro stop where I reside, I see that people are invited for employment in Hungary. As concerns more qualified people, we know for a long time that Estonia have been offering jobs to Ukrainian IT specialists for a long time, and experts of lower qualifications, they can talk to employers when they go and meet the employers in European countries. Previously, it was not so easy for them to go to the other country without stating a legal purpose of the visit. Well, this might mean for Ukraine outflow of labor. Maybe this could be a threat to Ukrainian national budget. And I would like to agree with Aliona that we need a new powerful impetus for anti-corruption and democratic reforms to free Ukraine from oligarchs' impact. I mean, how many people were interested in visa-free regime according to the survey? What is the number? 38% were interested. This means 10 million voters. They are people whose stand is important for the president of Ukraine and its party at the next elections. Of course, the previous elite would continue to struggle for their impact, for the impact of oligarchs and for their popularity among the population groups who will be voting at the elections. The visa-free regime now does not work as an impetus, as a driver to reforms. We have only IMF. 14 billions of repayments of Ukrainian foreign debt. This would press on Ukraine to carry out reforms, privatization reform, land reform, which are strict demands of the IMF, but it is doubtful whether the government would do this. Not everything could be included into Ukrainian commitments to IMF. IMF has already completed the very risky things, because they have always been saying that they worked this time with the cause but not with the symptoms. Usually the IMF was blamed that they work only with symptoms of the problem. I agree with Aliona that the old prospects of potential membership in the EU should be stated to the agenda, our political agenda, to drive reforms. I can't talk about European establishment stand due to the Brexit, due to the changed light in France, but taking into consideration not bad attitude in Germany to Ukraine, if really the business light in those countries would see that labor market opening for Ukrainians is beneficial for them, because our professionals are qualified. So business light relations and business light and government relations in the European countries would help us because the stand in European countries then might change to more logical than emotional as it is now. Now they are afraid of Ukrainian labor migration. And in future they would see Ukrainians as the source of acceleration of their growth thanks to labor migration from Ukraine. Good afternoon, Serhii Stukanov, Громадське Radio. I have a question to Aliona. You said that so far some portion of European establishment can see labor migration discussions as toxic, because the association agreement just has been ratified. How much time should pass for Ukraine to start the negotiations of Ukraine's accession? And the second question, there are Eurosceptic ministers among the government of Ukraine. What is the person? Not the timing is of importance. The question is in our capability to meet our commitments to the EU. I have just thought that I have been working on European vector in Ukraine for 15 years. Many countries have exceeded the European Union and become disappointed in the European Union during that period. Here, I think it is important how political will to perceive European integration not as rehearsal, general rehearsal of reforms, but as something irrevocable, that this is not a rehearsal, that this is reality, and there is no backtrack. If most political elites would feel so, then we would move. If they still think that they can maneuver, then the political elites still can think that they are only rehearsing but not implementing reform. Then we would experience hard times with reforms. So whatever the case for many stakeholders, political actors in Ukraine, they have too much to lose in the process of European integration. The Central European countries were in easier stand, in easier circumstances because they had nothing to lose. They just had the goal, decisiveness of their elites. They didn't have so large capitals which they can lose because of the European integration processes. In our country, everything is vice versa. Everything is different. So if there is no correct pressure on the part of civil society and our society in general, the process would be procrastinated, and I would like to address those, to say that, to address our people who would go to the European countries and return back to Ukraine as agents of changes, who would work here in Ukraine to obtain the same situation in Ukraine, to change the situation for better, for European standards. I know from my own experience that sometimes European reality is shocking for Ukrainian people. So I want them to return to Ukraine after visiting Europe and become agents of changes. There are many factors, and there is willingness not to irritate our European partners who play an important role on the front line of struggle against Russian aggression. So we try not to irritate them with questions which are not in their priority. As concerns general European trend, there is Brexit. At the same time as we have France and pro-European government there, and many of us saw that after Emmanuel Macron victory, what street celebrations, activities where the EU flags were carried out. This is a new pro-European trend, pro-European Union trend, which works for us. The situation is that Ukrainian interests in many aspects, they coincide with the EU interests, and this is a positive sign. We should talk more about this. I would like to add, what would be the evidence that Ukraine can have something in the EU. Transparency International indicators, no European country is among the top of them. If we decrease the level of corruption in Ukraine, then we can expect something in our EU integration. The situation previously was the same in Romania, in Bulgaria, but they have implemented radical changes, radical measures of combating corruption. But these actions in Ukraine, they are not liked by political elite of Ukraine. Until we combat corruption, we cannot have pretensions to some EU ambitions. Everything is connected. Our movement towards Europe, our important changes inside of the country, everything goes the same path, and there are very many obstacles among those groups of interest who are not interested in such pro-European reforms. I'd like to say one thing. We do not place all responsibility for the integration on the government. We can just tell that there is no political will. This is not so. Not only, as Ms. Iryna said, that they conducted a campaign, travel responsibly. I think we should also conduct a public awareness campaign, Euro-integrate responsibly. More than 60% of our citizens are going to Europe as tourists, not as labor migrants. So our tourists will be our image makers, and this would be of impact. Their images would be of impact on the image of the whole Ukraine. So the Netherlands referendum was based also on this image, which was established via image of individual tourists. So, as concerns visual effects for ordinary Ukrainians, which would prove and be evidence of changes, reforms, they take some time. Even such reforms in healthcare reform, education reform, which concerns everyone, they take time. What worked in Central European countries is infrastructure reform. We have possibility to pass the border comfortably, but our infrastructure in Western region is worse than in Donetsk region, where the hostilities took place. So what European integration could be talked about? We need infrastructure. So thank you everyone. Let's build Europe in Ukraine. Then Europe will give us the right to access. Thank you.